The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in my house at 11:30 p.m. I stood at the kitchen island, a ceramic mug warm against my palms, waiting for my chamomile tea to steep. I am 65 years old, a widow for the last 5, and I value my quiet evenings. My phone vibrated on the cool granite counter. The bright screen illuminated the dark kitchen. It was a text from my daughter, Sarah. I picked it up, expecting a picture of my granddaughter or a late-night complaint about her husband, David. Instead, the words I read made the breath stop in my chest. "We've decided we're going to distance ourselves from you. Please don't look for us anymore." I stared at the screen. I read the 2 sentences again, then a third time. There was no explanation, no context, just a cold, sterile dismissal. For a fraction of a second, a familiar ache bloomed behind my ribs. The instinct to call, to beg, to ask what I had done wrong rose in my throat. But then, a sudden, icy clarity washed over me. I recognized that phrasing. It was David's corporate, HR-style tone. Sarah had allowed him to type it, or she had typed it under his direction. Either way, they had made their choice. I did not cry. I did not drop my mug or sink to the floor. I simply set my tea down and tapped the reply field. My fingers moved steadily across the keyboard. "No problem. I'm going to cancel the automatic payments for your house and car." I pressed send. I did not wait for a reply. I walked straight to my home office, flipped open my laptop, and logged into my bank portal. For 3 years, I had transferred $2,000 on the first of every month to cover their mortgage and David's SUV. I clicked on the Recurring Transfers tab. I selected the profile labeled Sarah and David, moved my cursor to the red Cancel button, and clicked. The screen refreshed. The scheduled payments vanished. My chest felt surprisingly light. My phone did not stay silent for long. Less than 2 minutes after I canceled the bank transfers, the screen lit up with an incoming call from Sarah. I watched it ring. The phone vibrated across the desk, practically demanding my attention, but I kept my hands folded in my lap. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, a new message notification popped up. It was an audio message. I clicked play, leaning back in my office chair. "Lauren, it's David." His voice was tight, struggling to maintain that usual arrogant composure. "Sarah is very upset right now. I think you misread her text. She meant we just need some space for a few weeks to focus on our immediate family. Canceling the financial arrangements we rely on is a massive overreaction. Turn the payments back on, and we can discuss this like adults tomorrow." I scoffed. The financial arrangements. That was what he called my money paying for the roof over his head. I did not reply. Instead, I pulled up my budget spreadsheet. Without their $2,000 draining my account every month, my financial landscape looked entirely different. I had been skipping my own dental checkups and putting off the roof repairs on my own house just to make sure David could drive a car with heated leather seats. The realization stung, but it also fueled my focus. I started going through my credit card statements line by line. I had given Sarah a card 2 years ago for groceries and baby emergencies. I rarely checked the itemized receipts, trusting my daughter to be honest. Tonight, my trust was gone. I scrolled through the recent charges. $300 at a high-end golf shop. $150 for a premium cigar subscription. $200 for a luxury meal prep service. None of these were baby emergencies. None of these were groceries. I had been funding David's lifestyle while they planned to erase me from theirs. I did not wait for the morning to handle the credit card. I navigated to the card controls on my banking app, found the authorized user section, and removed Sarah's access. I locked the card entirely just to be safe. It was 1 mem. And for the first time in years, my money belonged entirely to me. The next afternoon, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera feed on my tablet. It was my son, Ryan. Unlike his sister, Ryan rarely asked me for anything. He worked hard as a mechanic, lived within his means, and always showed up to mow my lawn without being asked. I unlocked the door and let him in. He walked into the kitchen, dropping a bag of fresh coffee beans on the counter. "Thought you might need a restock," he murmured, studying my face. "You look different today. Mom, did you sleep?" "I slept wonderfully. Ryan." I poured us both a cup of the tea I had brewed earlier. We sat at the kitchen island. I handed him my phone, already open to the text exchange from the night before. Ryan read it, his jaw tightening. He swiped to see my reply and let out a short, sharp bark of laughter. "You actually canceled them." "Everything." I nodded. The mortgage, the car, the credit card they were using for golf and cigars. All of it. Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms. "David is going to lose his mind. He uses your money to pretend he's a big shot at his firm. You know he's not going to just let this go, right? He's going to try and intimidate you into turning the tap back on. Let him try." I took a sip of my tea. I'm done being their private bank. Before Ryan could say another word, a heavy, aggressive pounding echoed from the front door. We didn't need to check the camera to know who it was. The heavy fists hitting the wood belonged to David. I stood up, signaling Ryan to stay seated. I walked to the front door and pulled it open just wide enough to stand in the frame. David stood on my porch, his face flushed red, holding his phone like a weapon. Sarah was nowhere in sight. "My card was declined at the client luncheon," David snapped, skipping any form of greeting. I looked like an idiot. "Lauren, you locked the card." "I canceled the card. David," I corrected smoothly. "You wanted distance. I am simply respecting your boundary by removing myself from your financial life." He stepped forward, trying to use his height to push me back into the hallway. I did not move. I planted my feet firmly on the threshold. "You can't just cut us off without warning," he hissed, his eyes darting into the house. "We have bills. We have an agreement. We had a favor. A favor I have chosen to stop providing." I held out my hand, palm up. "Now. Since we are distancing, I need my spare house key back. The one I gave Sarah." David sneered. "I'm not giving you anything until you fix the bank transfers." He turned on his heel and marched toward his car, clearly expecting me to panic and chase after him. Instead, I quietly closed my front door. I pulled out my phone, opened my smart home security app, and navigated to the lock settings. I deleted Sarah's access code from the keypad and disabled the old physical key logs. Ryan appeared in the hallway, watching me. He's going to use Emma as leverage next. He'll say you can't see your granddaughter unless you pay up. I know. I slid the phone into my pocket, feeling a strange sense of peace. And I will not negotiate with emotional terrorists. If they want to keep Emma from me, they will have to explain to her why Grandma isn't around anymore. I won't buy her affection. The rest of the week passed in absolute silence. No texts, no calls, no apologies. I knew they were waiting for me to crack. They expected me to miss Emma so much that I would show up at their door with a checkbook in hand. I refused to play the game. Instead of sitting by the phone, I decided to reclaim my house. Sarah's old bedroom had remained a shrine to her teenage years. She used it as a free storage unit, claiming she didn't have room at her house for her precious memories. It was time for those memories to go. I bought a gallon of sage green paint and a pack of heavy-duty trash bags. On Saturday morning, I started emptying her closet. I pulled out old clothes, dusty prom dresses, and boxes of junk. At the bottom of the closet, I found a heavy plastic storage bin secured with tape. Curious, I peeled the tape back and popped the lid. Inside were neatly organized folders. My name was written on one of them. I opened it and found a stack of printed emails between Sarah and David from nearly a year ago. I scanned the pages. My blood ran cold, then immediately boiled. They were discussing assisted living facilities, not just discussing them, pricing them out. David had written, "If we can convince her that her memory is slipping, we can get power of attorney. We sell her house. Use the equity to upgrade our place and put her in that cheap facility out in the valley. She won't need much space anyway." Sarah's reply was short. "Let's wait until the car is paid off first. Then we'll start bringing up her forgetfulness." I carefully placed the papers back into the folder. I did not scream. I did not break down. I felt a profound, absolute vindication. Any lingering guilt I had about cutting them off evaporated in an instant. I taped the box back up and hauled it out to the garage. By Sunday morning, my garage was full, not just with Sarah's teenage junk, but with every expensive item I had ever bought them that they conveniently stored at my house. The leather sectional they claimed was too big for their living room. The premium espresso machine David wanted, but never learned to use. The designer baby stroller they used twice before buying a different color. I dragged it all out onto the driveway. I set up folding tables and placed bright pink price tags on everything. I priced it all to sell quickly. The espresso machine, $50. The leather sectional, $200. I made a pot of coffee, pulled up a lawn chair, and opened my garage sale to the neighborhood. By noon, the driveway was swarming with people. My neighbors, who knew how much I had sacrificed for my daughter, bought items with knowing smiles. I was counting a thick stack of $20 bills when a familiar silver SUV slammed on its brakes at the edge of the curb. Sarah jumped out of the passenger side, her face pale with shock. She stared at the neighbor loading her leather sectional into the back of a pickup truck. She marched up the driveway, ignoring the customers browsing the tables. "Mom, what are you doing?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "That's my couch. That's David's coffee machine. You can't sell our things." "Actually, Sarah, I can—" I tucked the cash into my apron pocket and smiled pleasantly. "I bought all of these items with my own money. You abandoned them in my house for 2 years. They belong to me. We're taking that money." She pointed at my pocket. "David's car payment bounced yesterday. We need that cash right now. Mom, stop this stupid tantrum and give it to me." I looked at my daughter, truly seeing her for the first time. The entitlement was practically oozing out of her pores. I did not raise my voice, nor did I reach for the money in my pocket. Instead, I reached over to the small table beside my chair and picked up a black leather notebook. I had spent the previous evening doing a lot of math. I held the notebook out to Sarah. She snatched it, glaring at me. "What is this?" she snapped. "That is a detailed ledger of the last 3 years," I explained calmly. keeping my tone conversational so the browsing neighbors wouldn't feel uncomfortable. It lists every mortgage payment, every car payment, the premium subscriptions David hid on my credit card, and the cash I gave you for Emma's daycare that you spent on a vacation to Cabo. Sarah's face flushed, a deep, ugly red, as she stared at the numbers. The grand total is just over $96,000, I continued. The cash I've made from selling this furniture today comes out to about $800 by my calculations. Sarah, you are still $95,200 in debt to me. So no, you will not be taking this money. She opened her mouth to scream, her hands shaking. You are the worst mother in the world. You're supposed to help us. David is going to lose his car tomorrow because of you. David is going to lose his car because he cannot afford it, I corrected. Now, please leave my property. You are disrupting my customers. Sarah threw the notebook onto the driveway. She stomped back to the SUV, slammed the door so hard, the windows rattled, and sped away. I calmly walked over, picked up my notebook, dusted off the cover, and sat back down in my lawn chair. I sold the rest of their items by 3 o'clock and used the cash to hire a contractor to renovate my new spare bedroom. The contractor finished the room in 4 days. The sage green walls looked beautiful, completely erasing the ghost of Sarah's presence in my home. I bought a comfortable armchair, a reading lamp, and a massive bookshelf. It was now my personal library. On Friday morning, Ryan called me while I was organizing my books. "Have you seen Facebook?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his voice. "You know I rarely log on to that site." "Ryan, what is happening?" "David's SUV got repossessed last night right out of their driveway." Ryan chuckled. He posted a massive rant online about how family is supposed to support each other and how toxic parents ruin their children's lives out of spite. He didn't name you, but everyone knows who he's talking about. "Let him type whatever he wants," I said, placing a novel on the shelf. Public pity won't pay his transportation costs. I told him to take the post down. Ryan added, his tone growing serious. "I also told him that if he ever showed up at your house disrespecting you again, he'd have to deal with me." "Mom, why don't you pack a bag? I rented a cabin up near the lake for the weekend. Let's get you out of town while they panic." It sounded perfect. I packed a small suitcase, locked all the windows, and set the security alarm before getting into Ryan's truck. The weekend was incredibly peaceful. We fished, drank coffee on the porch, and didn't talk about Sarah or David at all. I felt my shoulders drop away from my ears for the first time in years. On Saturday night, while Ryan was grilling dinner outside, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was an alert from my home security app. Motion detected at the front door. I opened the live feed. David was standing on my porch in the dark, holding a metal tool, trying to force the old physical key into my lock. I watched David jiggle the key, swearing under his breath. He had clearly planned this while he knew I was away, likely intending to break in and take anything valuable to pawn for his car. He didn't realize I had replaced the entire deadbolt mechanism, not just the keypad code. His old key was entirely useless. Ryan walked in with a plate of food, saw my screen, and frowned. "Want me to handle this?" he asked, reaching for his phone. "No," I replied softly. "I have this." I tapped the microphone icon on the security app. The two-way radio crackled to life on my front porch, miles away. "The lock is entirely new." "David!" My voice echoed through the dark porch. On the screen, David jumped a foot in the air, dropping his keys on the concrete. He stared up at the camera, his eyes wide with panic. "Lauren," he stammered, trying to block the camera lens with his hand. "I was just checking on the house. Sarah was worried about you." "You are trying to break into my home," I stated calmly through the speaker. "I am not going to argue with you. I am going to give you exactly 5 seconds to get off my property before I turn on the automated sprinkler system." "You wouldn't dare," he sneered, puffing out his chest. "I'll break this camera." I didn't argue. I didn't warn him again. I simply opened my smart home dashboard on my phone, selected the front lawn irrigation zone, and hit manual override. On the camera feed, 6 high-pressure sprinkler heads popped up from the grass simultaneously. A massive arc of freezing, high-pressure water blasted directly onto the porch, catching David squarely in the chest and face. He shrieked a high, undignified sound and scrambled backward, slipping on the wet concrete. He half ran, half crawled to his wife's beat-up sedan parked on the street, completely soaked. I turned the sprinklers off and sat down to eat my dinner. 3 weeks passed without incident. The silence that followed the sprinkler event was absolute. David had finally realized that intimidation would not work, and I had built a fortress around my life that they could not breach. On a Tuesday morning, I was sitting in my new library, enjoying a cup of coffee and watching the birds at the feeder outside. My phone vibrated. It was a long text message from Sarah. "Mom, we are really struggling. David lost his job because he didn't have a reliable car. We are 3 months behind on the mortgage. We are facing foreclosure. Can we please move into your house just until we get back on our feet? I know things got messy, but I am your daughter. You can't just let us end up on the street. Please." I read the message carefully. A year ago, a text like that would have sent me into a panic. I would have emptied my savings, cleared out a room, and welcomed them in, absorbing all their stress as my own. Today, I felt nothing but a calm detachment. They had planned to put me in a cheap facility to steal my equity. They had drained my accounts for cigars and golf. They had told me to never look for them again. I typed my response slowly, ensuring every word was deliberate. "You requested distance, and I am honoring that choice permanently. I will not be your financial safety net, and you will not move into my home. You are adults. You will figure it out. Do not contact me again." I pressed send. Immediately after, I blocked her number, and then David's. I set the phone face down on the table, picked up my book, and leaned back in my comfortable chair. The morning sun warmed the room, and for the first time in a very long time, my house belonged entirely to me.